As Adrian said, welcome. My name is Jane Colvin. I'm a proud member of the New York City League of Women Voters. And tonight we're going to be looking at some of the issues that the League takes on and how it arrives at them. Positions that it advocates and lobbies for at the local, state, and national levels. I'll be discussing national issues and how they are formulated. National issues meaning those that impact many states and indeed the entire nation. That leagues have studied and have agreed upon. Positions, indeed, that have been studied and accepted through consensus by local leagues are presented in this, our impact on issues. This is the League's Bible, its Quran, its Torah, its ever-evolving Constitution. This is who we are and what we believe in and what we advocate and lobby for. The headings in here are basic ones: representative government, international relations, social policy, natural resources. For the most part, these are fairly broad policy statements and objectives, deliberately crafted in this manner so that local and state leagues can fit issues of concern under these headings and take action. We cannot take action unless the issue is covered by these previously studied and agreed upon positions, and/or unless the issue is not in conflict with them. This is a way that the League maintains a consistent and uniform voice. But what happens when the League wants to take action on issues that are not covered in this? That's where the fun is. But before I get into this part of the discussion, I want to give you some background about how the League's organization informs this process. And in order to talk about how the national positions are arrived at, I want to start at the beginning. I'm sure you've heard repeatedly that the League is a grassroots organization. That means the starting point of League position is with us, the local or state chapters of the League. Some may think of our organization as a pyramid: national, state, and local. I think this implies a hierarchical organization and maybe even elitist. So I really prefer more of a trapezoidal presentation of who we are and what we do. This is a personal preference, but statistically we have a broader base of the local and local leagues. Though it would be rare for state and local leagues not to collaborate, the local leagues are most often the initiators of positions that turn into national program, as is best illustrated by the most recent campaign for hydrofracking regulation that the local leagues in New York State undertook. Acting together, local and state leagues from many states engineered a unanimously accepted resolution at this past national convention. What has enormous impact on the formulation of policy positions are, first, local leagues working together at convention, when members come together to decide what positions to adopt at the national level, and secondly, consensus. So kind of supporting our trapezoid, we have a convention base, and we also have something called a consensus base. Once adopted by convention, the issue is studied carefully and passes through a consensus process at the local league level. If there is consensus among local leagues, the program then becomes part of the national impact on issues and can be used as a basis for action, lobbying, and advocacy. It is a very thorough process. Just briefly, here's how it works. Okay, this is a start. I'm hoping that if a picture is worth 10,000 words, a diagram is worth even more. At the beginning of the year in which conventions take place, leagues meet to consider what issues they are interested in and submit program planning proposals, that's the PPP, to the National Program Committee. There's a certain amount of collaborating and maybe even horse trading at this point, as local leagues look for each other leagues to sign on to their issues and submit as one that they are interested in. Each league can select one and only one issue to support. And it does make a difference in the number of leagues that support initial, as we shall see. We have National Program Committee. The National Program Committee gathers all the program proposals and makes recommendations to the National Board. This happens about in the month of March. We start in January, it goes to March. The National Program Committee reviews and makes its informed recommendations, and the board itself will decide at a board meeting whether to recommend or not to recommend the different proposals. The criteria for evaluating these proposals are carefully enumerated and are several. Some of them are, is a new position required, or does a league have existing positions that could be used as a basis for action? A second is, does the proposed issue fall within the league principles? Is government action the most effective way to address these issues? Is there widespread member interest? Is this a timely issue? Is this an appropriate league level, or is national appropriate league level for addressing this issue? Are there other groups that the league can work with on this issue? They also look at the amount of league time, effort, and energy that would be required to conduct the study and to produce questions that are reviewed during the consensus process. As we'll see, the studies, let's see, are thorough in themselves. If the program is adopted at convention, there is a 2-year study program, at which point their consensus meetings are held nationwide by all local leagues. And what the consensus is achieved not by vote. Adrian is very eloquent about this. The consensus is, do we believe there is enough support among each league to make this a program issue? If there is, what happens is we send, all the local leagues send their consensus results to the National League, and they review, do the tally, and decide whether this is a consensus or a non-consensus. Once consensus is achieved, then it is added to the impact on issues. Phyllis, I'll take questions at the end if that's okay.
Okay, I didn't have a question.
Oh, okay.
Because when you were talking about, and it's so important, what a grassroots organization we are, and I thought one of the ways it really shows up is when we have non-recommended items at national. And
I haven't gotten there yet. Hold on.
Oh, you're going to do it? Okay.
Please
okay. Sorry.
It's okay. It's interesting to think about what happens. Let me flip back here for a minute. What happens if the board does not recommend an item? Well, this is interesting because there is a certain amount of prestige in having your program item recommended by the board. It influences some of the leagues who figure, oh, the national board really understands this, they've evaluated, they know this is right for us. On the other hand, it is a wonderful opportunity for leagues who have not passed this first barrier to get it to the convention floor, where it can be debated and advocated by leagues who feel strongly about this. As a matter of fact, at the June convention, the past one, we had 2 program items that were adopted, one of which was recommended and one of which was not recommended. What I wanted to say is one of these studies, or one of these topics, shows in particular the power of the local leagues at convention. It is absolutely amazing to be there. The first program, let's see if I check on this. No, I'm done with that. The first program that was adopted and approved or recommended by National was the role of federal government in public education. And the proposed statement reads, the role of federal government in education policy making with possible consideration of funding, common standards, and or governance relationships among all levels of the government. The scope of the study will be dependent on available resources, including committee and LWVNYC staff time. This topic had been reviewed and had been promoted by California leagues, many of which had gotten together to support this issue. They worked on it and were very successful in getting support from other leagues during this promotion, basically policy, so that by the time it was submitted to the National Program Committee, there were over 70 leagues supporting this. So they were very effective in getting their position understood by other leagues and convincing other leagues to support them. The second program that was adopted at convention was a non-recommended item on privatization. The policy agenda, and the study was to be on, or is to be on, the policy agenda to transfer government functions, services, and assets to the private sector. This was brought forth or introduced by the Seattle League, and was a bit of an undercover item. There was very little traffic, email traffic, during the period between the board agreeing to, looking at this and the actual convention. But the Seattle contingent was very effective at convention in rallying its troops and getting and spreading out and talking to different members of national convention. At the convention, I might add, there are caucuses, there are information tables, there are huge information and just constant lobbying efforts to gain support. This is not on the floor of convention, but outside of, or in the hall of the convention itself. Let's see. What's interesting, what I want to stress is that although national is very much our creation. We, and national and the state organizations, the grassroots have created these organizations for representational, marketing, organizational, and administrative purposes. But we are very much the grassroots and the ones who can affect what happens in policy and in program. And if you think about the process, we are the ones who started, and we are the ones who ultimately decided through the consensus. And if there is a problem, even at convention, even if the national board decides that, gee, we really don't think this meets our criteria for a policy or program policy item, the convention has often, as I understand it, I've not been a member that long, but has often kind of overruled the national board's position. So, yay, grassroots, that's who we are. But that's, now do you have questions on anything else here?
Do you want to talk about some of the resolutions?
I do. The resolutions, there are several types of items that are studied by convention. One is a proposal to conduct a study that gets into the program policy. Another is called concurrence. Concurrence are items that are based on existing national issues or national positions. They do not require a study because it's based on an existing position. That study is presumed to have been taken by many leagues. The concurrences, though, require a 2/3 vote. The program items require a majority, 50% vote. The concurrences, again, because they want to make sure that enough leagues are supporting or have supported, have studied this issue. Concurrences, let's see, at our league, if you excuse me for one sec, the concurrences that were passed at the past league were basically amendments to our arms control position, the marriage equality position, which is based on our civil liberties. I don't have the exact, but on an existing league position, and the national popular vote, which was, again, issued under the heading of representational government. So there's a hook on which you can hang these issues, not just to say that they weren't contentious, because they really were. There's a lot of excitement at the convention that goes on in discussing and debating these issues, and the votes are close, and it's interesting. This year,